truly care about this Ohio native, this kid Joe Burrow, make sure he goes anywhere but to Cincinnati.
Matthew Stafford is not an MVP caliber player. He's a good quarterback. He's not a great one, but he's a good one. One of these guys are going to draft in the first round again.
What good's your quarterback if he's murdered? And that's just what's happening.
I was going to say, I think this is the wrong pick relative to what Mina talked about. Penei Sewell and protection makes sense.
They have to win they got to win a Super Bowl, what, in the next 2 years? Or it's a disaster.
Chase, he leaps, he's got it! Touchdown! Bengals!
Do it, brother. Let's do it, brother. Block it! Riley! Riley! Block! Time!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who would never let his star quarterback get murdered. Kyle, how are you doing?
I got some goosebumps, man. That was
well
put together. I'm ready.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun making that. I think that's probably the most fun thing I do is the yearly Super Bowl intro to the podcast now.
Yeah, I'm surprised you found time to do that while making your Kyler Murray Tampa Bay Buccaneers jersey, but that was very good.
Yeah, exactly. Kyle, we have a lot to talk about. I think we're going to spend most of the show talking about Lovie Smith as the head coach of the Texans, right?
Yeah, and then we'll get into some Super Bowl stuff. My man John Schuster, also with the clutch curling win over the Russian Olympic Committee today. That was clutch. Sure. I mean, got a lot going on. We can't talk about the Super Bowl yet.
A lot going on. Yeah, no, obviously, maybe we'll touch on that at the end. Probably not. We will be talking Super Bowl for basically this entire show. I'm very excited for the Super Bowl, Kyle. I think this should be a great one.
It should be a fun one. I think both of these teams are exciting. I think that they both had really good playoff runs. And I think also I think a lot of the casual fans are kind of looking at this as a sort of breath of fresh air, We had basically 15% of the Super Bowls ever, and especially in the last 20 years, have featured like Brady. He's not involved in this one. No Mahomes in this one after making it 2 of the last 3 years. So it's like a new wave of talent, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I think this is the first time in something crazy like 15 years or something that we've seen no Peyton Manning, no Tom Brady, no Ben Roethlisberger, and no 49ers. I think those have been the 4 typical things that we see in Super Bowls. Not this year. It should be pretty fascinating. And I think also fascinating, also something very close, Kyle, we picked 284 games so far this season, only to be separated by a single point in our Pick'em show. Crazy stuff.
Very crazy. I, of course, picked the Chiefs not last week, 2 weeks now, basically. Week and a half. AFC Championship game, I picked the Chiefs. You had the Bengals in that one. You came out on the winning end. That puts you ahead, as I was ahead basically since, it felt like I was ahead since week, 7, 8?
I don't know if it was that long ago, but you had a lead for a while. I think it was at least the last 5 weeks of the regular season you were ahead, and then definitely all throughout the postseason.
Yeah, this was an abysmal picking season, by the way, just for anybody. This is just brutal to go through what we went through this season.
Best football season ever. Best football season. I truly believe this.
At least craziest. So
yeah, most unpredictable. I mean, because I was thinking man, I'm 6-6 in these picks, but then you think about it, and it's like Vegas was 7-5. So it's just been a hard time to make these picks.
Yep, I agree. So that being said, you being the lower score means that you get to pick the winner of the Super Bowl. Who are you taking in this game?
Yeah, so that's how it works. Basically, it's all to me. who do I select? And Kyle, I got to be honest, I went back and forth. I recorded kind of a general thoughts video about the Super Bowl that I'm posting tomorrow, I believe it is. And in that video, I was literally recording it and I didn't have my prediction made up yet. I made my prediction during that video. Because here's my logic behind it is, and we're going to break down everything, but I do feel like there are multiple different clear advantages. I think the Bengals have a clear advantage at the quarterback position. I do. I think that's a big advantage. I think the Rams have a big advantage in terms of the trenches. I think that's another advantage. What I keep going back to is the history. I feel like more often than not, when you need a quarterback to play Superman, it's a lot to ask. And I think that if the Rams play their best football, they win this football game. So I am going to go with the Rams to win this Super Bowl, but I have 20-17 Rams. I don't feel too strong about it, and it could come down to who makes the least amount of mistakes.
I agree with that. I think that's a good pick. I like you kind of struggle with this. I view these teams kind of similar. Obviously, I think the Rams have more talent, but like you said, Cincinnati has the better quarterback, and that means something in this game because it's a quarterback-driven league. That's why everybody, goes through dealing all these assets to get quarterbacks, tanks to get quarterbacks, because quarterbacks win Super Bowls, and Joe Burrow is plenty capable of winning a Super Bowl. That being said, I do think that the Rams are a better team from top to bottom, and that kind of just reminds me of last year a little bit. We looked at last year's game as like, okay, Patrick Mahomes can beat anybody in the world. Well, you can't beat anybody in the world when his offensive line doesn't give him any assistance. He makes mistakes in the backfield as well. Guys aren't getting open as, receivers 2 through 4 aren't getting open, and that killed them. I can kind of see that happen to the Bengals too in this game. I don't think it'll happen that as bad as it was last season, but I do think there's potential for that.
Yeah, I think there's potential. I think that I really do think this game can go either way. I think this is one of those weird games where I could see either team blowing out the other team. I could see this being a close game in either way. I could see any of the examples that could potentially happen. I could see happening in this one. Where do you want to get started here? Do you want to start with the Rams offense or the Bengals offense, or do you want to start special teams?
Let's start with the Rams offense. This is something I was looking at. So to me, the biggest part of this game is going to be which Matthew Stafford does show up. Like you said, I do think that they can win without Matthew Stafford having his best game, but at the same time, it'd be pretty nice if he was good in this game.
Yeah.
And while he's generally, among the top 10 in the league, he has been for a number of years now. The regular season Matthew Stafford to playoff Matthew Stafford has been two different quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford in the regular season was pretty good, but at the same time, he made some mistakes. He had a lot of turnover-worthy plays in the regular season, to where in the playoffs, Matthew Stafford was EPA's second best quarterback in football. And that's against, first was Josh Allen, who basically had 2 perfect games. So, he was the second best quarterback these playoffs over the playoff span. If he can play like that, I think the Rams should handle this game. But are we going to see that Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, that's the concern a bit about picking the Rams is I could see Stafford throwing 2 picks and losing this game. And, we can make another comparison and kind of make the comparison of the 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl of 2 years ago. And listen, Stafford's significantly better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but we did see kind of at the end of that game, you were able to see a scenario where we saw the better quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, make those big plays, and Garoppolo wasn't able to do so. Now, this is also part of why you get Matthew Stafford instead of Jared Goff, is because Stafford can make those big plays. Stafford in Tampa Bay was able to make that big drive when stupid Cooper Kupp made that catch and broke my heart. We've seen this stuff. Although, another interesting, a good chat I see here that I think I agree with is I haven't seen anything in the postseason. This is Zachary Stewart saying I haven't seen anything in the postseason to confidently say Burrow has a huge edge on Stafford. I think that's probably true. I think in this postseason, Stafford has been playing his best football. And if you can just get one more of those Matthew Stafford games, because he is someone he'll put the ball in harm's way. Even in this postseason, he's gotten a little lucky with some of these drops. Although I would still say, even with that included, he's played very well this postseason. So it does largely hinge on quarterback play. That's what we know. And one thing that concerns me a little bit, Kyle, is Stafford's someone who loves to get safeties out of position using his eyes, and he'll take those chances down the field. But when teams are playing 2 safeties deep, it's more difficult to do that. And I do feel like Stafford throws more interceptions against two safety deep coverages, and that's a immediate concern.
Yeah, so the Bengals defense, this has been well talked about. The Bengals defense blitzes the 26th in the regular season, blitz the 26th most in the NFL. And against the Chiefs, they hardly blitzed at all. In the regular season, they were 17th most. They ran the 17th most zone defense over man. And then against the Chiefs, they hardly played man at all, right? So they basically they identified this is how we're going to win these games, especially against these really good quarterbacks. We're going to drop back, we're going to drop into coverage. Like you said, keep safeties deep. And yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly where, like you said, Stafford has made his mistakes. And yes, the playoffs have been better. So I went through some of the numbers for Stafford. He's second in EPA for quarterbacks in the playoffs. He was fourth, but also he had some like kind of monster games. So I thought skew that stat a little bit. He was 17th in the regular season in completion percentage and 21st in completion percentage over expected. So I think he made some mistakes in the regular season. I think he's been sloppy, and I think that's something that the Bengals could take advantage of if they're able to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford's just one of those interesting quarterbacks where, to me, Matthew Stafford is the definition of a tier 2 quarterback. I do feel this way where there's so much he does well, but like there's clear flaws in his game that I don't consider him to be a top 5 quarterback. He will miss throws. He's done that all season, and he will make some of these just head scratching mistakes. He's done that his entire career. But the flip side is like when you get him on the wrong day, like if Stafford is on today, like the Bengals they're not winning the Super Bowl. I really feel like he can do that much, and he can run this offense with great effectiveness at times. We've seen that. So it's just an interesting, kind of. There's an interesting sort of ceiling and floor with Stafford in this game, I think.
Yeah. And then looking at, I guess, the rest of the Rams offense, obviously it's a terrific offense, but I think the interesting thing is the matchup going against this team. Like you said, Bengals are going to probably drop in coverage similar to what they did against the Chiefs. This defense has been 4th in EPA in the postseason. Which is a very good number. And dropbacks, by the way, that's not overall, they're 7th. On dropbacks, they're 4th in all the playoffs. They were 9th in the regular season. So they're pretty good, consistently good in dropback, except for against Mike White this entire year.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see that matchup go head to head, like you said, because I think that they're going to, this Rams offense kind of takes some chances down the field, and Stafford, like you said, takes some chances. Can he limit the mistakes? And is there even a way that how does he attack this secondary? I guess is the big question.
Right. And you talk about that zone coverage stuff. Well, what's interesting is let's look at the receivers. This is something I brought up, and it's fascinating. Like Cooper Kupp, for example, right? The offense runs through Cooper Kupp. Well, his yards per route ran versus zone is very good. 2.76. That's really good. Anything over 2 is that's elite level play. His yards per route ran versus man is 4.64. So we're dealing with a guy who you never want to leave one-on-one, but in zone, you're not having that beat you as much. And even someone like Odell, he does better against man than versus zone. So it might be, we don't know Tyler Higbee's status still. So that's the interesting matchup. And that's why I do think it is a good matchup for the Bengals defense. I think both defenses match up well in this one.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I'm really interested to see how they use Cooper Kupp in this game. I think that's the big question I have is how is Cooper Kupp lined up? Because he operates a lot in the slot. He likes to operate in the slot. I think there's two sides to this. I think that the middle of the field is typically open against these zone defenses, against both of them kind of in ways. I think you can attack the middle of the field, but the Bengals have this X factor in that Mike Hilton has been, I don't know, one of the best slot corners in football this season, if not the best. And that's something that they can use as kind of a Swiss Army knife to cover in that middle of the field and help in that area. So here's my question. This is one of my big questions. Could we see Cooper Kupp more on the outside? Could we see Cooper Kupp lining up on the outside, attacking guys like Eli Apple, attacking guys like Awuzie, who I still think is a good corner, but still is on this zone defense a little more isolated than attacking in the middle of the field?
Yeah. Well, listen, if you can get him on Eli Apple, you do whatever you can to make that matchup happen. I think that, sure. It's not like Cooper Kupp only plays a slot. Anyways, he moves around a lot. So I think that we'll probably see a mixture of both. And I do think that there is some real logic behind putting him on the outside and kind of you can, if nothing else, you're a better decoy from the outside and open things up for a Van Jefferson.
Well, and not to mention, so if they move him to the outside, obviously what the Bengals counter is going to probably put a Woozier on his side. Then looking at some of these other guys in this Rams offense, that means Eli Apple's lined up against Odell Beckham.
Right.
And Odell Beckham, I mean, he might be the best number 2 receiver in football right now. I mean, not that the guy on the Bengals side, T. Higgins, is bad either. I mean, he's terrific. So these are both really good number 2 options that I think are going to be able to attack. So if it's a Woozier then lined up on Kupp, who's playing on the outside, moving around the field, Odell Beckham should just have a field day, right? Like, he's someone who could be a huge X factor in this game, just attacking this defense and getting on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But another interesting factor is, again, just the way that the Bengals play their defense, just to try to set it up for the people listening or watching. It's largely with 2 safeties deep. It's the cover 2 zone. That's kind of their primary coverage. And so in doing so, while Odell might be able to get open, he might be able to get open for these 7 to 10 yard gains instead of being able to get open for a 50-yard gain, right? So you're at least making them work for it. And again, I think we'll see that on both sides, but I do think that that's something in Cincinnati's favor. Although you're right, again, the other side is that matchup could be an area of weakness.
Yeah. So what other things are you looking for from this offense? How do you want to see them attack this Bengals defense?
Kendall Blanton. How about Kendall Blanton, the unsung hero coming out of nowhere? He could be a real contributor in this one. I don't think it's crazy. I think he could be one of those surprise heroes for the Rams.
I agree, because like we were saying on the on Sunday's Super Bowl MVP thing picks, if Higbee is not able to go, the Rams find a way to get their tight ends involved, and I think both of these teams, neither one of these teams have like awesome linebackers, in my opinion. So I think attacking these linebackers in these zone defenses is probably going to be the way to go, and. Yeah, I mean, if Blanton is going to be that guy to have some opportunities, I definitely think that's something that they can attack.
Yeah, we have a super chat. Zachary Stewart says, prediction, Haley Joel Osment to OBJ with seconds left, but a taunting penalty on OBJ moves him back. Game misses the 46-yarder short. McCauley Culkin wins. All right, so I think Zachary Stewart is having himself a pretty good night, it seems like.
Yeah, it seems like it. Okay, I'll throw another X factor at you.
Sure.
Okay. This guy is not a popular guy in Rams country right now.
Okay.
Cam Akers.
Sure.
So
what about Cam Akers?
So let's look at this. We're expecting this game plan to look very similar to the AFC Championship game plan. It's not going to be like for like, but I think it's going to be similar. We're expecting them to drop into coverage. We're expecting to put a lot of emphasis on these Rams receivers. The Chiefs had a field day running the ball in the first half of that game. They ran for almost 6 yards a carry in that game and kind of dominated with guys like McKinnon just getting chunk plays after chunk play. Obviously, that kind of faded a bit in the second half, but is it possible the Rams kind of set the tone if they're going to drop 7-8 guys into coverage? I know DJ Reader's excellent, but if you're able to run the ball on the outside, which you have 2 really good offensive tackles, could you run the ball on the outside, get to the edge, and use Cam Akers to get an easy 5-6 yards a carry?
That's interesting. I think that they'll try it. I do think that they'll try it. I think you're right. And I think that this ground game is fascinating. I've talked about how I think kind of maybe in weird way, the key to stopping this ground game could be someone like Von Bell. Von Bell's another one of my guys who I think could end up having a big game in this one, because I think that his ability to be able to beat up on these receivers who are going to be blocking, I kind of previewed this a little bit in our last podcast, but the Rams love to have their wide receivers block. They kind of use their wide receivers as tight ends. It hasn't worked this season. They haven't ran the ball effectively this season, and especially not in the postseason. And McVay still likes to establish the run. So if you can get those guys in the matchup, but you're right, if they're dropping 3 and playing 2 safeties deep, that could be a great time to run the ball, and they might actually be able to move the ball down the field. Although, again, with an offense with guys like Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. and Matthew Stafford, maybe having them have a run-heavy game plan isn't the worst strategy in the world.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, for Ness Gabe here, we're talking about DJ Reader for the Bengals, not Troy Reader for the Rams, just so we got that right. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so obviously here's the thing. I don't want the Rams to get married to running the football in this game and feel like they have to. But I do think that this is going to be a situation where if you can just, say we want to commit to basically getting 15 good runs off and say we're still going to be a pass heavy offense, we want to emphasize the path. But if we have 15 good run plays set up and basically say if we can get 5, 6 yards off of that, that's going to make the defense have to think about it just a little bit more. I don't want them to go full on, okay, this is Cam Akers' game, give him the ball, let him work, that kind of situation. But if they're able to sprinkle them in, get some first downs, set up some easier drives, I think that's going to add to it a little bit.
Sure. And the reality is they're going to run the ball anyways, whether we want them to or not. This is something that they are going to make at least a part of their game plan. So the better they do at that is good for them. And you're right. Maybe if they run the ball, this will get Cincinnati to not just drop, have 3 rush the passer. One other interesting factor, Kyle, I want to bring up is a game that's probably very near and dear to your heart. Brady's last Super Bowl win with the Patriots, Super Bowl 53. I think we should talk about Sean McVay and the way that he coached that game and maybe lessons he can learn. Because I went back and rewatched that game, and what I learned was one thing, Dante Hightower totally deserved MVP that year because of the way that he was just getting in those passing lanes was incredible. And I think that part of that was coaching, of course, but it kind of just goes to show if you have an extra week to prepare and you have the best defensive head coach of all time, probably best head coach of all time, period, you can figure out, okay, this is what they typically do. This is what we have to look out for. You have an extra week. It's a Super Bowl. Everyone's so focused because you want to win so badly. You're going to pay you're going to spend the extra day in the film room this 2-week period. Could we see something like that happen? Or could we see Sean McVay maybe learn his lesson and kind of have subtle differences in some of these routes that they have been doing all year?
Yeah, so I think this is the interesting thing because you even said it earlier this season. I think McVay is a very good play designer and obviously has a good strategy, all that kind of stuff. But even this season, you said, he's kind of predictable with some of his play calling sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that put Stafford even in bad situations on bad throws and stuff like that. So if McVay, if he's going to be predictable, I think one of the things that's interesting, and along with establishing the run, is if DJ Reader can dominate this game in the middle, kind of take the running game away, force the Rams to be one-dimensional, does that make it very predictable for the Bengals defense too, to jump into passing lanes, like you say, make some plays, get a couple of interceptions, and all of a sudden flip this game in the Bengals' favor?
Yeah, and honestly too, again, going back to Super Bowl 53, it wasn't just with these obvious passing situations. It was like play actions, and they were still able to, Hightower's right where you want to throw the ball. This still could happen to some degree. So you have the extra week. I think that's advantage Cincinnati a little bit, and also it's not just DJ Reader. He's obviously the star, but BJ Hill is no slouch, and also Hendrickson and Hubbard off the edge can stop the run very well. So. The defensive line is very good. And the linebackers are all right. And that's kind of the issue is, are Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt going to be able to, they're not Dante Hightower, right? So you got to figure out, you're going to have to do what you can there, but they're solid players.
I agree. And that's going to be the big thing. Cause I think both of these teams are going to try and scheme ways to attack the middle of the field, because they're just going to envision both of these teams playing a deep zone defense. Trying to handle these receivers. It's the easiest way to handle it. So I imagine that both teams are going to try and scheme ways to attack the middle of the field. And can either of these linebackers kind of have a big game and kind of make some plays and maybe create a turnover from that spot?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is again very interesting. So I guess here I'll ask you this. We'll do it because you haven't given your prediction yet. So how about we'll do it by chunks? So if this is, I don't know, let's say it's a 10 possession game. How many points would you say the Rams put up?
10 possession.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
or if you already have a prediction, then
yeah, I wrote it down. I have the Rams scoring 21 points in this game.
Okay.
I think that they're going to get a couple touchdowns. They might cool off a bit in the second half, but I still think that they're going to find a way to get a couple scores. I think they open the game scoring, and I think that they find a way to attack this defense just enough to keep the ball a little bit, keep some clock running, and make it a little bit easier on them.
All right, but does Kyle think that'll be enough to win? Well, we'll have to stay tuned because let's talk about the other side of the ball, unless you had anything else you wanted to add about that.
I guess one thing, too, is just I marked some X factors for both of these teams.
Okay.
These guys are actually kind of stars, but at the same time,
X Factors, Cooper Kupp. Look out for him.
it's actually on the other side of the ball. I did all defensive X factors.
Okay, gotcha.
Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard in this game
Sure.
because they are going against the 4th and 6th best offensive tackles in football by PFF grading.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
going to have to find a way to get some pressure in this game because,
Mhm.
coverage is important, but you can't cover for 10 seconds. I mean, I guess you can, like they did against Patrick Mahomes a few times, but
Right.
odds are is they're not going to be able to cover for 10 seconds all the time. You have to find a
Mhm.
way to get some pressure, get past those offensive tackles who are that's probably the best duo in football as far as offensive tackles go. You have to find a way to get after them. They've been really good this season. I think they need to have really good games.
Yeah, that's interesting. And again, it's tough to get pressure off the Rams against the Rams. You're exactly right. So that is fascinating, and I do think that there's big advantages in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Everyone's talking about the Bengals offensive line with the Rams defensive line, but I think again, and it's not really because the Bengals pass rushes, especially when you have a good pass protection unit and a good pass rush unit, advantage goes to the offense.
Yeah. No, I agree, and it's kind of interesting. So we can move to the other side of the ball now. I feel like a lot of this is going to sound exactly the same. I think it's a very
Yeah.
interesting setup for both sides. I think both sides are kind of built similarly, and
Mhm.
I think both defenses are going to operate similarly. And these are coaches that know each other very well, and they're from kind of the same coaching tree. As in Zach
Mhm.
Taylor's kind of the protege here. I imagine both teams kind of doing a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, both teams like to have a lot of these two safety deep coverages, although the Rams mix it up more. The Rams will, like, for example, the Rams blitz 11th most in football. The Bengals blitz 6th least in football. I forgot to mention on the other side of the ball, but that's another advantage to the Bengals is that Stafford is the best against the blitz in terms of passer rating, but they don't blitz that much, so that's advantage Bengals there. But the flip side is, I think that the Rams are kind of uniquely built to beat this Cincinnati team. They have someone like Jalen Ramsey who can definitely slow down a Jamar Chase. He doesn't get beat too often. I feel like there's a lot of Jalen Ramsey haters out there. I think it's more about his personality than his play because his play is fantastic. And they'll have safety help in most of these plays as well. So you have this safety help. I think the interesting matchup might actually end up being T. Higgins versus Darius Williams. That number 2 option could be where the Super Bowl is won or lost, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, and then the other part of this too is, kind of what I was thinking about this side of the ball too. So is the Rams strategy, it is going to be a zone defense. That's well known. I mean, they have the second most zone defense in football, second highest
Mhm.
zone defense in football at their rate. But is there some logic to Williams lining up on Chase with the safety help over top and then having Ramsey try and take out T. Higgins instead and saying, okay, you're going to have targets at 2 guys with Chase and saying Ramsey is going to try and eliminate this other guy on the other side of the field, which forces you then to your third option.
I kind of just think put safeties on both of them. Like I don't think you have to take a safety away. I think just have 2 safeties deep. I think that's what they do and that's what they do well, and I think that would keep it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, by the way, T. Higgins is 9th best wide receiver in football by PFF, so he's no
Mhm.
slouch as a number 2 receiver. Now,
Right.
he is going against number 2 corners a lot of times, but still, he is very good. It's going to be interesting to see. Just going through it again, we'll start with the quarterback. Joe Burrow is amazing, right? I mean, Joe Burrow is PFF's number 1 football quarterback in football in the regular season. He's been
Mhm.
very good in the postseason, and I think that he's pretty much grown with each game too. I think he's been able to make plays. The numbers aren't jaw dropping to me, but at the same time, like you just watch that Chiefs game and it's over and over again. He finds a way to escape and make a play. He finds a way to overcome just about everything right now. So, I mean, there's not a lot of guys I'd pick over Joe Burrow right now as far as quarterbacks.
I agree. Joe Burrow has been just fantastic this season, and he's really stepped into his own. And some people in the chat weren't thrilled when I said that I think that the Bengals have a clear advantage at quarterback, but I believe that. And it's not a slight towards Stafford. I think Stafford is really good, but I think Joe Burrow has established himself. At least this season, he's been playing like an elite quarterback. And the regular numbers, the box score numbers, aren't going to completely jaw drop you. They're impressive, but what really will make you, what will make your jaw drop are his advanced statistics. He's fourth least in turnover-worthy play percentage, despite the fact that he has a lot of turnovers. That's kind of been fluke-based. I still think about that one game against the Chargers where Jamar Chase was open and just dropped the ball, which somehow went behind him and was intercepted. Like, there's an element of flukiness to turnovers, and Burrow's actually been pretty good at not turning the ball over. The Chiefs game in the conference championship excluded. I think what Burrow's done is incredible. Like, his adjusted completion percentage, if you adjust for how far he's throwing down the field, is best in football. His PFF grade is best in football. These stuff that I like to look at, he knocks them all out of the park, and just his tape is incredible. Like, and especially with, kind of talk about, he kind of does all this while starting every drive on 2nd down and 9. So, because, the Bengals love to run the ball on 1st down and this stuff, which they've done less these past 6 weeks or so. But really, the first half of the season, they were doing a lot. Joe Burrow's amazing. And quite frankly, okay, there might be a lot of pressure. Joe Burrow can get out of pressure. Like, Joe Burrow has the ability to do that. Joe Burrow is going to be the way that the Bengals win this game. If he can play at an elite level, the Bengals have a very good chance at winning this.
Yeah. Couple more points about Joe Burrow. Like I said, number 1 in PFF, number 1 in the NFL in completion percentage in the regular season, number 1 in completion percentage over expected in the regular season. And he's been just about as good in the playoffs too. Just consistently great on that stuff. And like you said, I think it's going to be so important for him to be amazing in this game. And I think that's something we said on Sunday too. When I picked him first for Super Bowl MVP, like just draft, because like we were saying, the Rams can win if Stafford's okay. I don't see the roadmap for the Bengals winning if Burrow is just okay in this game. And that's because, the defense is good. We went through that. The defense has some very good numbers. But the big thing that I was looking at is EPA for the regular season. The Bengals rushing attack is 28th in football, 28 out of 32. EPA per rushing attempt in the playoffs, they are tied for last in the NFL with the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams had a game where they fumbled the ball 4 times, and the Bengals are still tied for last with them. Like, it can't be said enough how bad this running game can be sometimes. I really like Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon's a terrific running back who does the best with what he's given at this situation. But this may be one of those games where they have to take the running game and just throw it right in the garbage.
Yeah, I mean, but they won't, right? That's not what Zach Taylor has ever. I mean, I'm not going to expect him to be someone who he isn't. He's going to try and run the football. I don't think it'll work too well. And, a lot of what the Bengals like to do, like what they did against Kansas City, where they double team guys at the line and then try to get up 2 block linebackers. Good strategy against the Rams, right? The great defensive line, linebackers kind of iffy. So double team guys at the line, but they weren't able to do it against Kansas City with effectiveness. They weren't able to clear out those running lanes at that initial first level. I don't think they're going to do it against the Rams then if they can't do it against Kansas City. Now, they do run block better than they pass block. I just don't think it'll be enough. I'd be surprised if they can get a consistent running game going in this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. And a lot of that, like I said, I think Mixon's really good. I mean, he's an all-pro. Mixon's a good running back. But the matchup that everybody's looking at, and this is kind of what everybody is circling when it comes to if people are picking the Rams to win the Super Bowl, this is the matchup they're circling here, who is, you're looking at Leonard Floyd, PFF's 31st best edge rusher. Von Miller, PFF's 4th best edge rusher. Aaron Donald, PFF's 1st best interior defensive lineman, maybe the best defensive player in football. Robinson is the 14th best interior defensive lineman in football. Gaines is the 32nd best interior defensive lineman in football. Going against a not very good Bengals offensive line, which has I don't even want to go through their PFF grades because it's almost mean.
It's a lot of syllables in that.
Yes, it's not pretty. They're gonna have a really tough time with this defensive line, right?
Yeah, and I mean the left side of the offensive line for Cincinnati is solid. You have Spain and you have Jonah Williams; those guys are fine. The real issue is going to be that right guard spot, which they split time. Jackson Carman and Adeniji split time in that one, and I think that's got to be your fear. Is what do you do in this situation if you are the Rams? Do you or if you're the Bengals? Because like for the Rams, there's a lot of ways you can go about this. You can just put Aaron Donald under worst guard and say, hey, let's try to make this happen, get these immediate pressures. Or what you do is you put Aaron Donald on the left guard, So now Trey Hopkins has to go over there and block Donald and double team him, or he has to help out his right guard, which leaves Aaron Donald one-on-one. So what do? And it's not like Gaines or Robinson are these slouches either. Or you can, put several guys on the right side to try, 3 guys on the right side to try and see if you can get Aaron Donald with one-on-one matchups against whoever the right guard is. There's some real issues going into this game, and quite frankly, I saw a comment on one of my videos saying like this game is going to be won or lost in the trenches. Like if that's the case, the Rams are winning. Like because the Bengals are not going to even tie in the trenches. They have to win in other ways, I think. We also have a super chat. Lamar says a big narrative is that Burrow is not in the same ballpark as Mahomes, Allen, or Herbert. But do either of those guys get to the Super Bowl with these Bengals? I don't know about that, but I would say, Burrow's definitely in the ballpark, if not ahead.
Yeah, I have them all in the same ballpark. So I don't believe in the narrative if that's the narrative.
Right. But yeah, anything about the offensive line stuff I said?
Well, yeah, and I think that this is going to be like, this could be one of those games where, like, you know how last year after the Super Bowl, everyone said, oh, Todd Bowles was the MVP. This could be like Raheem Morris's coming out party, right? Like, I feel like he's going to dial up a lot of stuff that, is just going to torment this Bengals right side of the offensive line. He's going to throw a lot of guys at them. And, Donald can dominate this game. Donald can absolutely, he can dominate any game he's on because he's Aaron Donald. But at the same time, like, if you pick the matchup for Aaron Donald to have for the Super Bowl, this might be the team you pick, crazily enough, because you're just like, okay, this is maybe the worst interior offensive line in football. This is kind of built for him to just destroy this game.
Yeah, and who knows? If this goes well enough for Raheem Morris, he could be getting head coaching interviews for years and years to come.
Yeah. We can move on from that.
But back to Aaron Donald. You're right. Aaron Donald is he's such a monster. He's the best, best player in football if you take away positional value. He's incredible. Okay, what else? Where else do we want to go from here? You want to talk Jamar Chase versus Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah. So, this is the big matchup. And, I think Ramsey is kind of built to – Ramsey is definitely kind of the cornerback who's built to handle Chase, right? Like, he's got size, he's got speed. You mentioned it on last Sunday's podcast. When it comes to those quick screens, there may not be a better cornerback in football to defend those screens than Jalen Ramsey. And they love to run those with Chase out of the, quick hitches out to the left side, try and break a couple tackles, have a big play out of it. Ramsey's kind of built to handle all that. And is he going to rise to the occasion? I do think that he's going to have a good game. I wouldn't be surprised if Chase still gets his numbers, though. I just don't expect it to be, one of those 150-yard games out of him.
Yeah, that seems unlikely. It seems unlikely that Chase will just take over and win this game. Now, granted, part of Chase's value is that he takes on double teams and gets Jalen Ramsey to cover him, right? That's part of the immediate value you have there. And who knows, maybe Chase could burn him deep. It's not unheard of. It's rare. It doesn't happen too often, but there's the potential for it. Although the reality is typically the way you beat Ramsey is you fool somebody, not by you just beating him straight up. And part of what makes Ramsey so incredible too is he's physical. And if Jamar Chase, who does like to do this push-off stuff because they never call it, so it's good strategy, do it. But because he does that, Ramsey's the kind of guy where he can match up physically and he's not going to get shoved around. So it's a good matchup for the Rams. And this is why you go out and trade 2 first-rounders for Jalen Ramsey, because when you're in the Super Bowl, chances are the other team's going to have a great receiver, and you're going to have someone who can match up against it. You're right. Jamar Chase is incredible. It's possible he could make this big play happen, but you feel about as good as you can going up against Jamar Chase when you have Jalen Ramsey and when you'll probably have safety help over the top for a good chunk of this game, if not all of the game.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about this game is going to be, once again, you mentioned it with Cooper Kupp's kind of, he's just very, very good against zone rather than the best receiver in football against man. Joe Burrow's another guy too, and this offense is kind of, this offense is solid to good against zone defense, where it's, against man and against blitz, it's where it's kind of dominated. They're not going to see a lot of blitz and man, I don't think, in this game. And I think that's something that's going to be interesting because it's another team to me where I don't think these Rams linebackers are very good. And can the Rams cover the middle of the field against this Bengals offense, which is probably where they're going to attack against this zone defense, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say they've been good at it this season. I think that, and so I think that's an issue. But right, that's kind of why this could be this could be a tight end game on both sides, and whether that's CJ Uzama or whether it is Drew Sample who's going out and running routes and making stuff happen there. Going, talking about the man versus zone stuff. So, for Jamar Chase, it's not quite as dramatic, but it's still pretty dramatic. His yards per route ran versus zone, 2.3. His yards per route ran versus man, 3.92. So it's almost very similar to, to Cooper Kupp. It's not quite as dramatic, but still pretty dramatic. You also have P. Higgins, who kind of does the same against man or zone. And it's Tyler Boyd, who's the real zone beater. So he might end up being the guy who is going to be getting the ball a decent amount in this one.
Yeah. Do you want to go to the super chat?
Yeah, super chat. Shaw in the chat saying, what is an example of a similar defense Joe Burrow faced this season? Like the Rams defense, tell me the game. I want to go watch the replay. The Chargers game is a good example because they that was an easy example. I actually have an interesting stat I'll get to in a second about that exact point. But yeah, you have anything about Tyler Boyd?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can have a big impact. So this brings me, I guess, to my defensive X factor for the Rams. Are you ready for this one?
Sure.
This is more of an X factor than picking Trey Hendrickson, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Traven Howard.
Okay.
Traven Howard, the linebacker for the Rams.
Yeah.
Very good linebacker. This is interesting because I was looking at his stuff this week. Where are my numbers here? Okay. against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. By the way, he has an 82.6 PFF grade. He's one of the best he is the best coverage linebacker on the team. He plays a lot of their nickel situations. Against Tampa Bay, Traven Howard took 57 snaps on the field. Against San Francisco, he had 24 snaps on the field. Obviously, playing the run team, that they had to change their game plan a little bit. I think he's going to be huge in this game because I think they're going to try to attack this middle of the field. I think Howard's going to see a lot of the field, and I think it's going to be really important that he comes up and makes a few big plays in this game.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, he doesn't get a ton of playing time. He's gotten more playing time recently, right? It's kind of been a new development. Only 214 snaps on the season, but recently he's gotten a lot more because really for the Rams, they kind of just have one linebacker. It really is just Troy Reeder. Like he's the linebacker. And other than that, they basically will have, they play nickel, but they play nickel with this, 3-4 defense. So that's what makes it fascinating. It's going to be kind of guys like, the guy who's covering Tyler Boyd will probably end up being like, some of these other corners who are going to come in, not so much linebackers, which is kind of another unique thing here. But you're right. It could end up being, there will be snaps where a linebacker is trying to cover Tyler Boyd. So if Howard can fill that role, that will be good.
Yeah. And not to mention, I think they said Robert Rochelle might actually play in this game. I think he's another guy who could have a big impact too for the Rams. So they have options. I think that there's going to be a tough matchup either way, but I do think that they have options to throw at their guys. Is it weird to say that maybe the Bengals have the advantage at wide receiver?
I don't think it's weird. In fact, I think it's true. I think the Bengals do have an advantage at wide receiver. I just don't think it's a massive advantage.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair because the Rams obviously have maybe the best receiver in football and a pretty good number two.
Well, because here's the thing, right? It's like, who's better, Cooper Kupp or Jamar Chase? Jamar Chase has been awesome this year, but you have to give it to Cooper Kupp. The Triple Crown winner, all that. I think you have to give it. Number two, I think you have to go, you said Odell. I think it's close. I think you could argue either one. I'd probably go T. Higgins. And then number three, I think I would also go Tyler Boyd over Van Jefferson. But none of these are like, wide gaps in any direction.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's see. Where are we going next with this? I have some stuff written down. I can't remember what I was going to go next.
Okay. So we can go a couple of directions. I mean, we've covered most of this right here. I had an interesting stat I was trying to pull up that was in the middle of it. I don't know. I mean, I think we pretty much covered the Bengals offense.
Yeah. I still like some of the matchups. I still like some of the matchups for the Los Angeles defense. I think that there's ways they can have success in this game. And like I said, I think Raheem Morris is going to scheme up a lot of stuff. But yes, I think that both of these teams are going to try and find ways to attack these zone defenses, and it's going to be interesting to see which team can have success because I think it's going to be tough for either of these offenses. I'm kind of thinking low scoring.
Yeah, I think so as well. And, another interesting aspect, kind of the way I think Zach Taylor, there's an interesting thing here. Like, clearly, he's not a bad head coach. He's in the Super Bowl, but there still are some issues that we have with him. And there still are a lot of if they're not getting time, which we suspect they won't. I think the move with Zach Taylor is don't panic, still trust your quarterback. I worry he might panic a little.
Yeah, and I'm willing to go on. I'm going to give a hot take here. If they fall down 21-3, they won't come back and win the Super Bowl. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how he goes about this game because I do not think he had the right game plan offensively against the Chiefs defense. I didn't think it worked very well. I thought they struggled at times, but Burrow kind of got him out of it and brought them back in that game. If he's going to run the ball a lot on first down, set them up for failure, I do not want to see 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7 with this team against this Rams defensive line. I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. Now, the weird thing is Burrow's kind of been he hasn't really been good. So I was looking at the numbers here. Burrow on first down is 6.2 yards per attempt, 5 sacks and 2 interceptions in the playoffs. On 2nd and 3rd down, he has 8.5 yards per attempt and 4 touchdowns. So he's actually been good on those 2nd and down situations. But I feel like you're tempting fate with those, right? I feel like you're tempting fate if you're going to set yourself up for 3rd and long because you're running the ball into Aaron Donald for 2 plays.
Yeah, part of me does wonder how many of that is factored into all these first down screens as well, but I'm just basing that off nothing. Here's a stat I was trying to find. This is interesting. This is very compelling, Kyle. So
Okay.
I went back and just looked at every team the Bengals played and which teams tend to play 2 safety deep coverages or single safety deep coverages. Now, that doesn't mean that they only played that coverage in the game, but just that's what they typically play on the year. So it's not a scientific study, but it's interesting. When the Bengals played teams that typically play 2 safety deep coverages, they scored 19.4 points per game, and their record was 2-6. When they played teams that on average don't have to play 2 safety deep coverages, they scored 35.2 points per game and were 11-1. Granted, one of their wins was against Tennessee in this postseason, but those are jarringly different numbers from 2-6 to 11-1. The Rams play a lot of 2 safety deep coverages, so this is advantage LA.
Well, and this is one of those things, if you look back at, for the opposite situation, you look at those, Ravens games, and we kind of like the Bengals in those matchups against the Ravens. They scored 41 points in both of those games. But you look at a team like the Broncos, and, you think, oh, they're way better than the Broncos. They won that game 15-10. So I do think that there's some interesting things to look at with the numbers. That is interesting to see that stat. And it kind of leans you to pick it probably leans you to pick Rams even more, right? Was that your deciding factor?
It was a big part. It was, I mean, and on the flip side, you could go with the Rams, and I did the same thing for them. When they play 2 safety deep coverages, they're 6-4. When they don't, they're 9-1. So that's a pretty significant jump as well. It's not as significant, but still, that's a 30% win percentage difference. But the points per game is very close. It's only a 2 point per game difference in those stuff. So I think Stafford throws more interceptions, and that's kind of the maybe part of why. And I think part of it has just been luck. So it does seem like both of these teams are in a bad matchup, but I think it's a worse matchup for Cincinnati than it is for the Rams. As long as Stafford doesn't throw 3 turnovers, I think the Rams should be okay. Really, if he throws 2, I think the Rams are in trouble, but you can maybe get away with 1, and that's what you're banking on.
Yeah. So are you ready for my prediction?
Sure. So you had 21 points that Cincinnati would score, or that the Rams would score. How many did Cincinnati score?
All right. I have the Cincinnati Bengals scoring 16 points in the game. I have the Rams 21-16. I'm taking the Rams -4. I'm taking the under 48.5. I really like that number, actually. I think the one thing is that both teams should, emphasis on should, throw the ball a lot in this game. I think that it's feasible for both of these teams to drop back a lot, throw a lot. That could lead to more possessions and more points scored. But I trust both of these defenses to make plays. I really like both of these defenses. I think they're really going to step up. I see a couple turnovers maybe on both sides of the ball. And I think the Rams come away with the win 21-16 because their defensive line dominates. I just can't I know they kind of did it last week, but at the same time, this is way better than the Chiefs' defensive line. I don't know how the Bengals are going to counteract this. This is the best defensive line in football, and you're going at it with not a great offensive line outside of Jonah Williams.
Yeah, listen, it's incredible that Cincinnati is here, and they could pull it off. They could. This is not a. I think we both, neither one of us are saying this is a massive difference. Although I guess I would probably bet on the Rams. I would probably bet on the Bengals +4. You would bet on the Rams -4.
Barely. I have
Mhm.
a 5-point spread, so I have Rams barely covering.
If gun to your head, you had to pick if the Rams would cover, you would say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. We should talk some special teams, right? Talk about that. Touch on that for a second. Kyle, I had an interesting realization when going through all this data. Evan McPherson wasn't that great in the regular season. His kicking percentage was 20th in football. Now, he's been amazing in this postseason. He's been perfect, and he's had some tough kicks that he's hit. So his postseason has been fantastic. In the regular season, he was okay, and he was really good under 40, but the stuff over 40, he was only 75% on.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's completely fair. But at the same time, I think that what we've seen this postseason is that he has the advantage. He's shown that he can be pretty much money from anywhere. Once they get past the 45, they're in McPherson's range right now. I think he's a great kicker. Yeah, you're right. I think that his numbers were just okay, but I still trust him overall to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would think so as well. It's an interesting discussion, I guess, because you're talking smaller sample sizes, but the playoffs do matter more, and there's a legitimate thing to it. It's not just like something that like talking heads say. Like clearly, kicking is a mental game, so being able to kick in the biggest moments, there is something to that. Also, I like this chat. David says, with a gun to Kyle's head, I would also pick the Rams to cover. LOL. Hopefully, this is because David thinks the Rams will win, not lose. Kyle.
Hopefully that's what. Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, but like Matt Gay was second best in kicking percentage in the regular season, but he's missed a couple of kicks in the postseason, and he has that injury thing. I don't know how serious it is. Also, we have a super chat from Brandon. We appreciate that, Brandon. But like, do we know that the Bengals have a kicking advantage?
I think it's still pretty slim, honestly. Like, I still think Matt Gay's a pretty good kicker. And as far as punting, like, I'm always going to trust Johnny. I trust Johnny Hecker to,
Sure.
pin a needle inside me to save my life or something like that. I think he's amazing. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the special teams is kind of a wash right now. I think both of them are pretty good. And, yeah, I mean, I trust both of these kickers to knock down field goals.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, we should probably see some. I mean, kicking is so random. Who knows, right? Anyone could have a bad day. Like that's kind of part of the thing about it. I'm also interested in. There's one last special teams point. So Kevin Huber is the Bengals punter, and he'll be punting to probably Brandon Powell, who is currently PFF's second highest graded kick returner. But you also have Cooper Kupp, who's been returning some punts as of late. Part of me wonders, do we want to take the ball out of Powell's hands? We've also seen the Rams kind of do some interesting things where they'll go after some punts that'll surprise you, and then also like they'll have like 3 guys back to block already. So they get creative with it. They do some different stuff. So I could see them having a decent run or two. Trent Taylor's not bad for Cincinnati either. He's pretty good as well, but kind of interesting there.
Yeah, I think that they can go about it different ways. I mean, I'm all for giving Cooper Kupp more chances to make plays. So if you want to put him back there to return some punts, I'm okay with it. But they have good special teams no matter what. So I think it's pretty good either way.
Yeah, I think it should be interesting. But yeah, so that's the special teams stuff. So you have the Rams, I have the Rams, but obviously officially you have to pick Cincinnati just because otherwise I would guarantee a win.
Yeah, pretty much. I have to pick Cincinnati. It doesn't matter anyways because it's not mine. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. Listen, I think that the Bengals have a shot. The Bengals definitely have a shot. I think the Rams are a better team, but there's just something about this Bengals team. I think everybody wants to pick them right now. I think people are picking them because they're fun. They're new. The Burrow is a superstar, and I think he's the best quarterback in this matchup. This secondary can definitely make plays. And I think that there's plenty of opportunities for the Bengals to win this game. I'm just going to pick the Rams just off of talent, especially on that defensive line.
Sure. If Matthew Stafford pulls a Ryan Tannehill and throws an interception on the first play of the game, I'm immediately shifting my pick to the Bengals.
Yeah, that's probably a fair call.
Like just to show, like that's how close it is. Like in a lot of games, if there's an immediate pick, I'm saying, okay, well, I still think the team is going to win. Like I think it's that close. So, but yeah. Anyways, interesting stuff, Kyle. You have some prop bets to talk about.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, if you listened to the Super Bowl preview show last year, I think I threw out some props that I really liked. I have 12 props that you can all basically go ahead and cash the check now. These are all going to hit.
Yeah.
You ready to get to it?
Yeah, I think we should just tell the younger audience, if you bet on these, you will win money. Do not gamble responsibly. Bet whatever you can. Bet what you can afford to lose and then some on these stuff.
Yeah. He's obviously kidding. Be smart.
Yeah,
Anyway,
legally, we have to say that we're joking.
yes. Number one prop bet. Actually, it's not my number one. These aren't listed in order. But
Number one prop bet. One you feel most confident about. Where are we going?
okay, I'll go number one overall. Jamar Chase over 3.5 rushing yards in the game minus 110.
Okay, I like that. I kind of like that. And I also, I could. So basically, you're expecting some sort of jet sweep motion here.
Yes, he'll get one reversed. I think they run it to him, quite a bit. Basically once a game. I think he has one. He gets 4 yards. I'm taking Jamar Chase over 3.5 rushing yards. I have 2 more rushing ones for you. I have Samaje Perine under 2.5 rushing yards for the game, minus 110.
Okay.
He had over 2.5 rushing yards in 11 of the 17 games this regular season. He's had 0 yards rushing in all of the postseason games this year. I'm going under 2.5 rushing yards for Perine. I'm going over 3.5 for Jamar Chase. And then Cam Akers, I have under 65.5 rushing yards for the game, minus 110 as well. I think that Akers is, I did say that he could be an X factor in this one, but I do think he is going to go under. I don't think he's going to get the carries to do it. I think they're going to do some different things. So I think you could see a couple, I think Michelle might get into this game a little bit too. So I think Akers is going to go under.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that's some interesting stuff. It is going to be hilarious when Jamar Chase gets like 6 end of rounds and it doesn't get any yards on any of them.
I can't imagine. Like, I just imagine myself like sweating this Samaje Perine one where he has 0 yards the entire game and gets a 3-yard carry like in garbage time or something.
Exactly.
And I'm so pissed. Some of the other ones I like: Troy Reader to lead the game in tackles plus 430. I think the Bengals are going to throw the ball over the middle a lot. Reader stands in the middle. I think he's going to make some plays. Troy Reader, most tackles. Leonard Floyd, plus 500 for the first Rams sack of the game. I think I think there's gonna be a lot of emphasis on Donald and Miller. I think Floyd's gonna sneak in and get the first sack of the game. Going off of that, I think the Rams, they're gonna get a lot of pressure. I think they're gonna frustrate the Bengals, but I think they're gonna go under 3.5 sacks, which is minus 145. I see them getting right around 3. I don't think they're gonna get like 5 or 6 in this game. Under 3.5 sacks for the Rams. Let's see here. Matthew Stafford, most passing yards in the game, minus 114.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford with this one.
Yeah, makes sense. I wasn't sure if you wanted a different response. Yeah, no, I get the logic behind that. I don't have a strong opinion on who will have more passing yards, but sure.
This is kind of a risk. Joe Burrow, no interceptions, plus 100.
Yeah, that's a bit of. I mean, I don't think it's crazy. Again, I guess like what's more likely, him to throw an interception or not throw an interception? I guess I'd probably say it'd be more likely for him to throw an interception. You do get a little bit of better odds for not throwing, but I don't know. I can see the logic behind it. I can see him being extra careful with the football, although he certainly wasn't that way the last time we saw him play.
Yeah. Let's see. Speaking of kickers, we talked about that last. Evan McPherson, over 7.5 points per game. This is minus 144. So like I said, 21-16. I got 3 field goals and an extra point. That is
okay.
10. That is what is that?
You got it.
That's can do 10 points. So
there you
over
go.
7.5. Yeah. Damn. I like the Bengals plus 3 in the first half. I think this game's close early. Let's see. Let's
Wait, you like the
see.
Bengals +3 in the first half, but you like the Rams to win?
Yeah, like I see it being like
Okay, I
10 to
guess I see
9.
it.
Yeah, like 7 to
Mhm.
6 at halftime.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, and then I,
Yeah.
I was thinking -3 for whatever reason. Yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I got the Bengals to cover 3 in the first half, but then lose by 5. So yeah, Bengals minus +3 in the first half because I think it's going to be a close game. Matthew Stafford, one or more touchdown passes and the Rams win -170.
Okay, it seems
And then
unlikely that they would win without a touchdown pass, so I think that's probably a good way to double down on that.
yes. And then the biggest one of the day, plus 900 odds.
Okay.
Odell Beckham Jr., first touchdown of the game.
Okay, I see that. Yeah, I mean that doesn't seem crazy either. I think that's good a chance of him getting it as anyone else. So sure, and he's been weirdly been like a key red zone threat for them. So yeah, that makes sense.
So those are my prop bets.
No, very good stuff, Kyle. I'd be a little bit worried about Eric Weddle taking that one away from Troy Reader, the most tackles.
There's a few guys on that list that I was like, he could get a
Mhm.
lot. Von Bell, I thought, was an interesting pick, but he had the second highest odds, so I didn't want to pick Bell. But I
Mhm.
went with Reader. I think it's going to be close, though. I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys close to like 10 tackles in this game.
Yeah, Kyle. Who would you feel? To wrap things up here, sort of the legacy talk. I guess who are some of the guys who you think would be so cool to see get a ring? Because I think about like these, like, if Matt Stafford got a ring, like what a year for him to get this Super Bowl ring. That completely changes how we view Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I think he's the big one. It'd kind of be like
Mhm.
if, almost not quite as good because Chris Paul's better, but almost like if Chris Paul won an NBA championship, but
Mhm.
similar aspect, kind of been around, kind of thought of as a loser for a lot of years and now, has a chance to win it. That's the biggest one. Odell Beckham, I think, has a big one because, he was basically given away by the Browns.
Mhm.
And Sean McVay, too. I think Sean McVay is a big one after, I mean, we'll call it like it is. It was a dud the last time he made the Super Bowl. It was a
Yeah.
dud of a performance and a dud of a game plan.
Mhm.
If he wins the Super Bowl this year, I think that does a lot. And I also think it does a lot for, I mean, I think the Rams winning a Super Bowl does a lot for team building going
Mhm.
forward. Like, I think we're going to see this model emulated more where draft picks don't matter. We're just going to go and get stars. We're going to fill our team with as many stars as possible and go for it. I think we're going to see a lot of teams who maybe have the quarterback or are searching for the quarterback to go pay top dollar for star players to add to their team. So I think those are the things for the Rams.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. You talk about team building, and I do think it's interesting the way that so what's fascinating about the Rams is when the GM first got there, one of his first moves was the RG3 trade, the trading away the second overall pick to get 3 first rounders and a second rounder, which at the time was considered, oh my God, you fleeced the at the time called the Washington Redskins. What a great move. And none of those guys really panned out. They did draft Aaron Donald in that stretch, but that was not with one of those picks. But that's kind of an interesting thing. And I feel like that's kind of shaped how they team build now, where they kind of realize the true value of a first round pick. And I think about the Von Miller trade of, listen, if Von Miller only gave them a marginal benefit so far, which he hasn't, he's given them a significant benefit. But if he only gave them a slight marginal benefit, it's still a bigger benefit than the Bengals are getting in this Super Bowl with their second and third round picks. So you have that because just they haven't drafted them yet. So building, kind of giving up assets for the future to be a good team now, it's worked. And what's interesting too is they haven't really done much in free agency. They've gotten a few they took them flyers on guys and developed them. Like I think about Leonard Floyd was a 1-year, $10 million deal. With Ashawn Robinson was a 2-year, $10 million deal. They've gotten some of these flyers, but it's usually been drafting well in the late rounds and trading for stars. That's really kind of been the thing. They traded multiple first round picks for Jared Goff back in the day. And now they traded multiple first round picks and Jared Goff for Matt Stafford. So the way that they use first round picks, it's fascinating and it's smart. Think ways other teams don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. And I think the Bengals too are another team where it's like, okay, this team spent money in free agency. This is typically not viewed as the way to build a team, but they went and got DJ Reader. They went and got
Yeah.
Trey Hendrickson for Carl Lawson. They went and got some of these guys. They drafted a good amount too, so that helps. But they also filled out their roster with a lot of free agents, which I think was important. So I think legacy-wise, like I think Burrow's kind of cemented himself among the upper echelon of quarterbacks right now, and I think he's already kind of in that conversation. I guess the one thing would be obviously, the Bengals winning a championship would just be huge for the city. And, this is a team that, it's kind of laughed at it how cheap this team is and how much this team doesn't like to spend typically. They went out and spent and they went out and finally won a Super Bowl. So, I think that's be an interesting legacy part to it too.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is funny. Like, out of these two teams, the Rams are getting the super team label, but it's the Bengals who really built through free agency a lot. Guys like, DJ Reader, Von Bell, Trey Hendrickson, Chidobe Awuzie, Mike Hilton. They also got some role players like Larry Ogunjobi, Riley Reif, and Eli Apple through this free agency, and these are just in the past few years. So it also helps when you draft Jonah Williams, Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase in the past 3 years. So that stretch, after they seemingly couldn't stop missing on first-round picks, they then go and have this hot stretch once Zach Taylor is hired, and that's really kind of been the key to their success. And yeah, the guys, obviously, seeing guys like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase reach the top of the mountain would be awesome. I think that you could also talk about some of the role players, and it's kind of just an interesting thing where I guess if you're thinking about it from who we would be most happy to see win Super Bowls, there's probably more guys than the Rams would be happy for than the Bengals, only because the Bengals have that, they'll probably be back. They're a good young team, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, it doesn't. I will say that with how long they kept Marvin Lewis, if Zach Taylor does win a Super Bowl, he'd never leave Cincinnati at that point, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting just the way that the Bengals operate, right? They don't officially have a GM. This is a weird team, the way that they do things, but kind of two of the more unique strategies are two teams playing for the Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah. So pretty cool to see both of these teams in it for different reasons. And, I think that there's a lot of public favor behind Cincinnati right now. A lot of people want this team to win. I'm excited for this team to win. I think it's going to be, if they do win, I think it'd be really cool to see this team win, see this young upstarts, see a guy like Burrow kind of, this team's getting a lot of 2001 Patriots comparisons, and I kind of see it at times. So I get it. It'd be interesting to see if this starts a new era of Cincinnati football.
Yeah, Bengals fans would really be happy if that happened, if we could see a Cincinnati dynasty, but who knows? So many, good young teams. Who will be the one who emerge? But the easiest way to start a dynasty is to win the first championship, and the Rams aren't going anywhere either, I don't think, anytime soon. So no. It's interesting stuff.
And Chris Collinsworth will be in the building.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's fascinating. It sucks one of these teams has to lose. I want them both to win.
Yeah. Maybe
no
we
villain
can
here.
Maybe we could just, throw out the Lombardi trophy and do participation trophies. What does everyone in the chat think about that?
Yeah, I'm sure the chat will be very one guy is going to be really mad, like damn millennials suggesting Super Bowl participation trophies.
Yeah, I'm kidding, by the way. Let's not do that. I'm kidding.
David in the chat shouting out WKRP in Cincinnati. Good show.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
there we go.
It's very fun Super Bowl. Kyle, next time we'll be talking, it will be the first off-season podcast of the year.
Yes. Does the recap count as off-season?
I guess not, because we're still talking about what happened in the season, but it'll be taking place during the off season, but it itself won't be an off season podcast because we'll be live Sunday night. It'll be after the Super Bowl at midnight. So there's going to be a few hours because I'm going to be posting videos all throughout. Then we'll do the podcast right at midnight my time, so midnight Eastern. Do it for about an hour, and then I'll probably just go back and make more videos. Be a lot of content on Sunday, so be on the lookout for that. It should be fun. Kyle, what are your Super Bowl plans?
I don't know, actually. I haven't really. I'm a huge procrastinator. I've had a lot of work to do, so kind of dealing with that. But I'll probably buy some wings. Hang out.
There you go.
Enjoy that. So we'll see. Go to Wingstop. That's the place to be.
Okay, well there you go. Yeah, it should be fun. I'm very much looking forward to this Super Bowl. Kyle, any final thoughts before we head out? Actually, let them know where they can find us on Twitter and all that good stuff.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Grana. Make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK. So are we not doing U.S. curling corner? Are we not talking about that?
Next, I think we'll start off the Super Bowl recap with that.
Russia or U.S. huge win over Russia today.
Okay, interesting.
You
I gotta be honest, Kyle.
it.
I haven't watched a second of the Olympics.
Really?
Yeah,
I think it's
I'm
just
not
something that I think I imagine college basketball fans are kind of like me with Olympics. Like the sport's kind of dead, but I'm just always going to just watch it unnecessarily.
Okay. Well, here's the thing with the Olympics. It's like impossible. I remember trying to find like the basketball stuff because all the NBA players were in for the Olympics. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And they were struggling, so I wanted to like watch the game. And it's like impossible to find. Like you can't easily access it. It's not easily accessible. Like they never do it. They just show beach volleyball all the time in the Summer Olympics. It's impossible to follow. If there was an easier way to follow it, I think I'd probably get more into it.
Yeah, I think that the what's their faces has really kind of messed it up. NBC, they've really kind of done some really dumb stuff with it.
Did you go NBC? What's your faces?
Yes, them. I finally just caved and got Peacock for a number of different reasons. Mainly actually because I wanted to catch up on the Scream movies, but
Okay.
I got Peacock, and I had that for the Olympics. I had that for Sunday Night Football and the Super Bowl. So it's whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is Olympic Corner with Kyle. Interesting stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I also got disappointed when they don't let the NHL players play hockey there.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb. I agree.
Yeah. I lost all interest in the Olympics once that happened.
Man, you got to get into John Schuster and this U.S. curling team.
Okay. When's the next curling match?
I have no idea.
See, this is my thing. This is why I can never get into it.
Yeah. It's a thrilling sport no matter what. I mean,
I remember watching curling like when I was like, I don't know, like 14 or so, and I was like really enjoying it. So like there is something to it.
Yeah, I don't know, just the way because the thing is like I think the camera work on it's actually perfect because they throw the rock and you can't see the target the whole time because they're navigating like, aerial over the rock the whole time, the stone. Sorry, they call it stone.
Yes.
So it's over the stone the entire time. So you can't actually see where it's going. So the anticipation of waiting to see where it ends up in the target and how they actually play their strategy is quite thrilling because you wait till the very last second, you're like, oh, we did it. And then it goes crazy. Or maybe I just go crazy. I don't know. I'm weird. So it's okay.
Well, I feel like the commentators are also very good about like, this is what they're probably going to try and do, to let us know the strategy behind it. They're a real Tony Romo with that stuff.
And these people who are like Olympic curlers are just unreal. Like, so this game against Russia today, we're just going full into this, I guess. So
I guess so. Yeah, we're here.
It's like they went into an extra frame because Russia tied it up at the end by like literally a half an inch. Like it was a half an inch closer to the center, and that's how they went to an overtime. And in this extra frame, like Russia's on like they have the bullseye, which is white, and then the first outer circle's red. And Russia has their stone in the red circle on the outer, that's just on the outside of it.
Classic Russia with the red.
And then they're just like, oh, he's just going to put this right in the middle and that'll be game. Like, what a bad strategy by Russia. Because and then he just drops it right in the middle. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world. I'm just like, oh, okay, this sport's easy, I guess.
yeah. Maybe it's just like really one of those really easy sports. Maybe that's it. Maybe we could be Olympic curlers.
No, I've tried it. It's hard.
Also, our numbers are plummeting here on the podcast doing curling, but that is okay. I also like this David in the chat. How to F did they invent curling? I feel like curling is the most obvious sport that was invented, right? It's not like the easiest. I can easily picture like two drunk guys on a frozen lake inventing curling.
Yeah, they just actually have like rocks instead of like, carved stones or anything. And they're just like, okay.
Or like
it's basically bocce ball on ice.
Yeah, it seems like maybe it was off like baseball. I don't know how that got invented.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot more nuanced of a sport, right?
Yeah, I think that there's some sports I think are a little confusing. That one I get. Like hockey, I get. Hockey, I can figure out how they invented that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mhm.
Golf makes sense.
Right. Got that one as well. Yeah. All right. Well, that's our show. As always, we have the audio only feed. I'll probably edit out the intro for the audio only feed so people won't be very confused. So I'll be doing that. So if you're an audio only listener, you're probably confused at the beginning of this podcast. Oh, well, that's your fault. No, it isn't. Why did I say that? But anyways, Kyle, any final thoughts? Last time I said this, we went on a 10-minute tangent on curling, but any final thoughts?
I won't do that to you this time. Looking forward to the Super Bowl like everybody else is. This is going to be a good time. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. All right. One more podcast until the season is complete. It's been a best season ever. Hopefully, it has a great finale. Thank you to everyone again for watching or listening. We do appreciate it. And until Sunday, see you later, alligator.
Peace.